Chicago's autumn twilight painted the downtown skyscrapers golden. Rachel Miller gazed down at the city from her 35th floor office, looking at the wedding planning file spread across her desk. The preparation checklist for her wedding, just 3 weeks away, still had several unchecked items remaining. "Rachel, aren't you heading home today?" Tom, a fellow architect, called out to her. She turned around with a smile. "Just a little longer. I need to prepare for next week's presentation. After the wedding, I'll be away from the office for 2 weeks on my honeymoon." Rachel was a talented architect working at the major firm Architect Associates. She handled everything from residential design to commercial facilities, earning particular industry recognition for her environmentally conscious, sustainable architecture. Meticulous and responsible, she completed every job perfectly and had earned deep trust from her colleagues. Her cell phone rang, displaying a message from her fiancé, Michael Johnson. "Tonight was dinner with your parents, wasn't it? I'm looking forward to it." Rachel felt warmth fill her heart. Michael was a kind man who, despite his busy days as a cardiac surgeon, always put her first. An hour later, Rachel was driving toward her parents' house in the suburbs. The 2-story house where she'd lived since childhood was surrounded by a garden that her mother Margaret carefully tended, with warm light spilling from the windows. As she entered the front door, a delicious aroma drifted from the kitchen. "Rachel, welcome home." Her mother Margaret rushed over and embraced her. Margaret was a kind-hearted woman who volunteered with local charities and always put her family first. "You must be tired. Hasn't Michael arrived yet? His surgery is running long. But he sent word that he'll be here soon." In the living room, her father Robert was watching television. A construction company owner, he was one of the few family members who understood Rachel's passion for architecture. "Rachel, how are the wedding preparations going? Is there anything you need help with?" "Everything's going smoothly, Dad. But honestly, I'm a little nervous." Just then, the front door burst open with force, and bright laughter echoed through the house. "Everyone, sorry to keep you waiting." Her sister Emma appeared. She looked like she'd stepped out of a fashion magazine with her perfect appearance. Her long blonde hair gleamed as if just styled at a salon, and she was dressed in a designer brand dress. She was a beauty influencer with 500,000 followers, becoming an object of admiration for many women with her perfect lifestyle. "Emma." Margaret rushed over, embracing her daughter as gently as if handling a precious gem. "You look absolutely beautiful today. Is that a new dress?" "It's provided by a brand. I'm planning to wear it in an upcoming campaign," Emma answered proudly. Rachel watched her sister with a complex expression. From childhood, Emma had grown up receiving special affection from their parents. "Emma is our precious gem," was their mother's constant refrain, and her beautiful sister had always been the center of the family. While Rachel loved her sister, she couldn't completely banish the loneliness she sometimes felt. "Big sister, only 3 more weeks until the wedding. I can't believe it. Are you really getting married?" Emma made an exaggerated expression of surprise. "Yes, really," Rachel answered with a smile, though she sensed something unsettling beneath her sister's words. Michael arrived, and the family dinner began. The conversation naturally turned to the wedding, with Emma monopolizing the center of attention as usual. She cheerfully talked about her social media success and interactions with celebrities. "Emma's influence is really incredible," Margaret said proudly. "Just the other day, I heard that a restaurant she recommended had lines of people waiting." Michael listened politely to Emma's stories, but his gaze toward Rachel was filled with deep affection. Toward the end of dinner, Emma approached Rachel. "Could you let me handle the wedding speech?" "A speech?" "Of course. As your sister, I'll give an absolutely unforgettable speech. I want everyone to know who you really are." Emma's smile was perfect, but Rachel felt an inexplicable unease about the light in her sister's eyes. However, in the harmonious family atmosphere, she couldn't voice her concerns. "Thank you, Emma. I'd appreciate that." On the drive home, Michael turned from the driver's seat. "Your family is really warm. But you seemed worried about something with Emma." Rachel gazed out the window as she answered. I'm fine. I'm sure she'll give a wonderful speech. Friday evening, Rachel returned home after her final dress fitting. The white silk dress fit her body perfectly, and the bridal salon staff had praised her, saying she looked like a goddess. However, as she looked at herself in the mirror, Rachel harbored complex emotions. Her cell phone rang with a call from her best friend, Sarah Hartwell. Sarah had been her friend since college and currently worked as a reporter for the local newspaper. Rachel, can you talk now? I heard something strange. Sarah's voice carried an unusual tension. Rachel answered with a growing sense of foreboding. Of course. What's wrong? Today, I saw Emma at a cafe where I was doing interviews. She was talking to someone on the phone, saying she was collecting old photos of you. Really old photos. Rachel's heart began to race. Old photos? Yes. She used the phrase, my sister's true face. Rachel, do you have any idea what this is about? Rachel fell silent. From 7 to 5 years ago, there had been a period when she'd left Chicago. She'd hardly talked to her family about that time. Officially, it was overseas architectural training, but the reality was much more complicated. Rachel? Are you listening? Thank you, Sarah. I appreciate you looking out for me. But I'm sure it's for a wedding slideshow. Emma's probably planning one of her dramatic presentations. After hanging up, Rachel sighed deeply. Outside the window, Chicago's night view sparkled beautifully, but her heart remained clouded. The next day, Rachel headed to the wedding venue for final confirmation. At the elegant hotel ballroom, staff were meticulously preparing. The venue that would welcome 200 guests was decorated with white roses and calla lilies, creating a truly dreamlike space. Bride, please check the sound equipment. Guided by the staff, Rachel stood in the center of the venue. A huge screen had been installed for video presentations during the reception. Looking up at that screen, Rachel recalled Sarah's words again. When she returned home, Michael was waiting. His expression held an unusual seriousness. Rachel, there's something I need to tell you. The two sat on the sofa, and Michael took her hands. I met Emma at the hospital today. Emma? Why was she at the hospital? She was in the plastic surgery consultation room. I happened to see her. But what she was talking about concerned me. Michael continued hesitantly. She was telling a friend that my sister is addicted to plastic surgery and disappeared to change her face. She went into quite a bit of detail. Rachel's face paled. She hadn't known Emma was spreading such rumors. Michael, I have no intention of prying into your past. But if Emma is planning to do something at the wedding, I think we should stop her. Rachel stood up and walked to the window. Looking up at the night sky, sealed memories began to resurface. Indeed, Rachel had undergone 3 surgeries. But there was a truth behind those surgeries that no one knew. 7 years ago, she had volunteered for Haiti's earthquake disaster relief. She'd gone to help design temporary housing using her architectural expertise. One day at a construction site, an accident occurred and a local girl was about to be trapped under debris. Rachel instinctively pushed the girl away and took the direct hit from falling steel beams herself. She suffered multiple facial fractures and needed staged reconstructive surgery for functional recovery. Only Michael knew this truth. He had been one of the surgeons involved in Rachel's final operation. That's how they'd met. The surgery you underwent was the result of self-sacrifice. To call it plastic surgery addiction, Michael's voice was filled with anger. But from the outside, it looks no different from cosmetic surgery. To Emma, I'm the sister who changed her face. Sunday morning, Rachel visited her parents' home. Her mother Margaret was tending flowers in the garden. Rachel, what's wrong? You look pale. Mom, I need to talk to you about Emma. The two sat on the garden bench, and Rachel chose her words carefully. I heard that Emma's been collecting old photos of me. Do you know anything about that? Margaret's expression clouded. Actually, I've been concerned about that too. Emma seems unable to genuinely celebrate your marriage lately. She sometimes complains, saying only big sister gets to be happy. She said that? On the surface, she acts cheerful, but recently many things haven't been going well for her. Her influencer work isn't as successful as it used to be. Rachel began to understand her sister's true state of mind for the first time. She hadn't known about the struggles behind Emma's seemingly perfect lifestyle. Mom, even if Emma says something at the wedding, I'll be okay. But Rachel. We're family, so we have to accept each other's weaknesses. Whatever Emma thinks, I love my sister. That night, Rachel stood facing the mirror in her room. She touched her cheek with her fingertips, tracing the faint remaining surgical scars. These wounds had been sustained to save another person's life. They were nothing to be ashamed of. The day before the wedding, Rachel was caught up in final preparations. The florist delivered beautiful bouquets, and the final consultation with the hair and makeup artist was completed. In the evening, a message arrived from Michael. Tomorrow, you'll be the most beautiful bride in the world. I love you. All of you. Rachel smiled as she replied. I love you too. Let's make tomorrow the best day ever. However, before going to bed, she whispered softly to the starry sky visible from her window. Emma, I don't know what you're planning to do, but we're family. Please don't forget that. On the wedding day, the ballroom on the top floor of Chicago's prestigious Grand Palace Hotel was wrapped in a dreamlike scene. More than 200 guests had gathered, and the venue decorated with white roses and calla lilies was filled with elegant laughter and words of blessing. Crystal chandeliers sparkled gracefully, and silverware was beautifully arranged on the tables. Rachel sat at the bride and groom's table next to Michael. Dressed in a pure white silk gown, she was the picture of a perfect bride. Receiving warm blessings from guests, she felt truly happy. Her parents, Robert and Margaret, smiled joyfully, and friends offered one blessing after another. The bride is truly beautiful. I haven't seen such a lovely wedding in a long time. The guests' voices echoed through the venue, and a natural smile appeared on Rachel's cheeks. Michael gently held her hand, gazing at her with loving eyes. After the main course, the wedding cake was brought out for dessert. The three-tiered elegant cake was decorated with white roses, a work of art in its beauty. The cake-cutting ceremony proceeded warmly, with guests offering hearty applause. Now then, everyone, the MC's elegant voice resonated through the venue. As we finish our meal, we'd like to hear a speech from the bride's sister, Miss Emma Miller. Applause echoed through the venue, and Rachel looked toward her sister. Emma was dressed in a sparkling pink dress, looking like she'd stepped out of a fashion magazine with her perfect appearance. Her blonde hair was beautifully styled, and her makeup was flawlessly applied. However, the smile on her beautiful face had an unnaturally bright quality. Emma walked gracefully to the microphone. All eyes in the venue focused on her, and expectant silence filled the air. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for gathering today for Rachel and Michael's special day. Emma's voice rang beautifully, and guests smiled as they listened. Rachel also showed a relieved expression, listening to her sister's words. Today, I want to show everyone my sister's true face. Emma's words made Rachel's heart feel like it stopped for a moment. However, at this point, many guests still took it as an expression of warm sisterly love. My sister is not the person you all think she is, Emma's voice echoed through the venue. Actually, she's been hiding something. Murmurs began to stir in the venue. Rachel's face paled, and Michael beside her leaned forward. My sister has had plastic surgery 3 times. Emma's voice rose. Look. This is what she calls her efforts paying off. Emma raised her hand, and images appeared on the venue's giant screen. There, a photo of a woman with bandages around her face was displayed prominently. This was followed by a current photo of Rachel shown side by side. It was clearly being presented as a before and after surgical comparison. Everyone, this is my sister's truth. She's a plastic surgery beauty. Emma's shrill laughter echoed through the venue. Confused murmurs arose from the guests, with some letting out awkward laughter. Some showed openly shocked expressions. Rachel was completely frozen. The color drained from her face, and her hands began to tremble slightly. Her beautiful wedding dress suddenly felt like a heavy burden. Her mother Margaret, sitting beside her, was also speechless, covering her mouth with her hand and shaking. Her father Robert tried to stand up, but his body wouldn't move from the sudden shock. "Emma, stop this." Sarah stood up from the back of the venue. But Emma didn't stop. "Big sister has been deceiving everyone. Natural beauty is a lie. It's all a face bought with money." Emma's words continued to echo through the venue. The guests' gazes focused on Rachel, and she felt humiliated as if she'd been stripped naked. Tears began streaming down her cheeks, but she was too shocked to make a sound. "Everyone, this is the truth about the perfect bride. Beauty created by plastic surgery. It's all fake." Emma looked around the venue with a triumphant expression. However, at that moment, a slight hesitation crossed her face. She realized that the guests' expressions weren't showing the surprise or amusement she'd expected, but clear discomfort and confusion. Rachel's friends and colleagues looked at her with concern. Tom from the architectural firm stood up and muttered quietly, "This is too cruel." "Emma, that's enough." Then, a low male voice wrapped the venue in silence. Michael slowly stood up. His expression had completely changed from his usual gentleness to the calm, resolute look he wore when facing difficult surgeries as a doctor. Michael's blue eyes burned quietly with anger. However, that anger was controlled and filled with dignity. The sound of him standing echoed through the venue, and all the guests held their breath. "Emma," Michael's voice was low but reached every corner of the venue. "Do you understand what you've just done?" Emma's triumphant smile gradually began to change to a look of anxiety. Overwhelmed by Michael's presence, she took a step backward. "Is this what family does?" Michael's question echoed through the venue. Complete silence fell. All 200+ guests froze as if time had stopped. People holding forks midair, those with glasses paused at their lips, everyone waited for the next words. The color drained from Emma's face. With Michael's dignified demeanor and the heavy atmosphere pervading the venue, she was beginning to understand the gravity of what she'd done for the first time. The microphone in her hand trembled slightly, and that tremor became sound through the venue's speakers. Through her tear-blurred vision, Rachel watched the man she loved stand up to protect her. Michael's back was reassuring and filled with deep love for her. Michael began walking toward Emma with sure, deliberate steps. His white tuxedo gleamed in the venue's lighting, radiating the dignity of a messenger of justice. His gaze, having witnessed countless moments between life and death as a cardiac surgeon, held the deep insight that only those who know the weight of human life possess. "Ladies and gentlemen, I apologize for this disturbance." Michael's voice was calm, but the emotion within it reached every corner of the venue. "However, I must tell you the truth here and now." Emma continued backing away, completely overwhelmed by Michael's commanding presence. The microphone in her hand trembled, and that tremor could be heard as small sounds from the speakers. Michael stopped in the center of the venue and slowly turned back toward Rachel. His gaze toward his wife, whose cheeks were wet with tears, was filled with deep love and respect. "Rachel," his voice rang gently. Rachel gripped her napkin with trembling hands and nodded slightly. Her eyes held fear and anxiety, but also trust in her husband. Michael turned back to face the venue and began speaking with authority. 7 years ago, Rachel went to Haiti. Murmurs arose in the venue. Many guests began to sense that the story about to be told was completely different from what they'd expected. As an architect, she volunteered to participate in post-earthquake reconstruction efforts. To design safe, livable temporary housing for disaster victims. Michael's voice was powerful, and everyone in the venue focused on his words. Emma's face grew increasingly pale. The work on site was dangerous. With limited materials and equipment, there was an urgent need to provide safe shelter for people as quickly as possible. Rachel worked alongside local workers in grueling labor day after day. Rachel's parents, Robert and Margaret, showed expressions mixing surprise and pride at hearing their daughters passed for the first time. Then, one day, Michael's voice took on weight. An accident occurred at the construction site. Scaffolding collapsed, and a local worker, a young girl, was about to be trapped under debris. The atmosphere in the venue changed instantly. The awkward mood from before shifted to tension-filled silence. Rachel didn't hesitate. She instinctively pushed that girl away and took the direct hit from steel beams and debris herself. Small gasps arose from the venue. Several female guests covered their mouths with their hands, showing shocked expressions. The steel beam that struck her face caused multiple fractures to her cheekbone, nasal bone, and orbital floor. The local medical facilities couldn't handle it, so she was emergency airlifted to America for emergency surgery. Emma was completely at a loss for words. The microphone in her hand continued to tremble, and the sound echoed through the venue. After that, 2 reconstructive surgeries were needed for functional recovery. As a doctor, I can tell you this was not cosmetic surgery. It was essential medical treatment to heal wounds sustained while saving another person's life. Michael stopped in front of Emma. His blue eyes gazed at his wife's sister. The surgery you mocked as a plastic surgery was the result of courage and self-sacrifice. What you laughed at as efforts paying off is proof of sacrificing oneself for another's life. Tears began overflowing from Emma's eyes. She was beginning to understand the horror of what she'd done for the first time. And, Michael turned back to the venue, the girl who was saved that day is now working as a nurse in Haiti. The girl whose life Rachel saved is now in a job where she saves people's lives. Moved sighs escaped from the venue. Many guests had tears in their eyes as they looked at Rachel. Rachel slowly stood up. Her trembling hands gradually calmed, and she straightened her back to look around the venue. Everyone, Rachel's voice was initially thin but gradually gained strength. I am not ashamed of my face or my past. Silence returned to the venue. Everyone focused on Rachel's words. I was indeed injured in that accident. But one life was saved. That girl is now a fine nurse helping many people. I don't regret my choice. Rachel's voice held unwavering conviction. The scars remaining on my face are proof of love and courage. Nothing could be sadder than having them called a fake. She looked directly at Emma. However, sadness mixed into Rachel's voice, as my sister, as family, I trusted you. Emma stood frozen. The microphone in her hand fell to the floor with a loud metallic sound echoing through the venue. Her beautifully made-up face was ruined with tears, and her entire body was shaking. At that moment, applause arose from one corner of the venue. Tom from Rachel's architectural firm stood up, sending strong applause. That applause instantly spread throughout the entire venue, and voices of praise from guests echoed through the hall. Rachel bowed deeply while shedding tears. Her mother Margaret rose from her seat and rushed to her daughter. Rachel, I'm so sorry, Margaret cried as she embraced her daughter. I didn't know anything. How brave you are, how kind. It's okay, Rachel gently embraced her mother back. Her father Robert also stood up and headed toward his family. My daughter, I'm proud of you, Robert's voice trembled. You're a true hero. The applause in the venue didn't stop, and many guests began throwing flowers toward Rachel. She was surrounded by beautiful flowers, like a rain of blessings. Emma stood alone at the edge of the venue. Her beautiful pink dress was so glamorous it seemed out of place, highlighting her isolation. After the wedding, Emma disappeared from the venue. The family searched for her, but she had already left the hotel, and no contact could be made afterward. Rachel was worried, but she understood that Emma needed time. A year and a half later, Rachel and Michael were preparing brunch in their spacious kitchen. Rachel's belly was large and round, with their first child due to be born next month. Isn't the bacon smell too strong? Rachel asked, covering her nose. It's fine. Let me open the window, Michael answered with a gentle smile. Their married life was filled with happiness. Rachel was steadily building her career at the architectural firm, and Michael felt fulfilled in his hospital work. The incident at the wedding had actually deepened their bond. Just then, the front doorbell rang. Visitors on Sunday morning were unusual, and Rachel tilted her head. I wonder who that could be. When Michael went to the front door, a familiar woman stood there. However, she looked like a completely different person from before. Emma? She was thin and gaunt, her cheeks hollow. Her former glamorous beauty had faded, and she was dressed in simple clothing. What had changed most was the surgical scar remaining on her left cheek. Michael, is Rachel here? I have something I want to talk about. Emma's voice was completely different from her formerly confident tone, humble and reserved. When Rachel appeared in the living room, the sisters faced each other for the first time in a long while. Rachel couldn't hide her surprise, but welcomed her sister warmly. Emma, please sit down. I'll make coffee. Thank you, Emma answered quietly. When the three sat on the sofa, Emma slowly began to speak. After that wedding, my life completely changed. The social media backlash wouldn't stop, my followers plummeted, and all my brand contracts were terminated. Emma's voice trembled. But that wasn't all. I became so obsessed with my appearance that I underwent dangerous plastic surgery. At an unlicensed overseas clinic, attracted by the cheap cost. She touched the scar on her left cheek. The surgery failed. They damaged a nerve, leaving permanent paralysis in part of my face. This scar will never disappear. Rachel and Michael were speechless. It's ironic, isn't it? Emma showed a bitter smile. I mocked you for being addicted to plastic surgery, but I was the one who was truly addicted. And this is the result. Tears overflowed from Emma's eyes. While I was hospitalized, I kept thinking. Your wounds were sustained to save others. But my wounds are the result of my own vanity. Though they're both the scars, their meanings are completely different. Rachel stood up and sat next to her sister. Emma, the past doesn't matter anymore. What's important is now. But what I did to you. You're my precious sister. We're family. Rachel gently embraced her sister. Emma cried aloud in her sister's arms. I'm sorry. I was always jealous. Even without plastic surgery, you glowed from within and were loved by everyone. I had nothing. Beauty was everything to me. That's not true, Rachel stroked her sister's head. You have kindness. You have feelings that worry about me. That's the most important thing. Michael brought coffee and offered it to Emma as well. Your family too. Let's build a new relationship together. Emma wiped her tears and showed a genuine smile for the first time. Rachel, is the baby in your belly healthy? Yes, due next month. It's a boy. I'm going to be an aunt, Emma smiled happily. I want to become an aunt that child can be proud of. As the afternoon passed, the three sat around the dining table. Emma talked cheerfully about baby name candidates, and Michael explained precautions during pregnancy. I've decided to attend nursing school, Emma suddenly said. Like you, I want to work helping people. Rachel nodded happily. That's wonderful. I'm sure you'll become a lovely nurse. The setting sun streamed through the window, gently illuminating all three faces. Emma's scar and Rachel's surgical traces both seemed to shine beautifully as proof of love and courage in this warm light. True family, they quietly understood, consisted not only of blood relations, but of people who chose to accept each other's past and wounds and walk together toward the future.